One thing Houston and Oklahoma State both have in common is they absolutely killed it in the transfer portal, and one of us will beat Texas Tech.
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
It's a bonus crossover. Park Ranger Locked on Cody Stovall, Locked on Oklahoma State. And who knows, maybe we both beat Texas Tech, but the reigning Red Raider champions, it's just weird to say, can't even say in the right order.
It is.
They are the team to beat. I think both Oklahoma State and Houston have had transfer portal classes that helped them get to that point. Obviously, Houston took a pretty good beating last year. I actually don't know the score of Oklahoma State off the top of my head in that matchup most recently, but Oklahoma State had a lot of bad losses last season, but they've changed a lot, Cody. And I want to throw the ball to you first here because honestly, they're one of the most rebuilt teams in the sport, let alone the Big 12.
Yeah.
And talk me through this. I mean, you follow recruiting very closely. This wild transfer portal going into spring practice very soon with a whole bunch of new Cowboys.
Yeah, I extremely impressive, right? I think everybody in the country can see guys like Drew Mestemaker and Caleb Hawkins and Wyatt Young are NFL level dudes, which we haven't had in a few seasons. But even aside from that, right? The common consensus was at least going to be, they're just going to be the Oklahoma State Mean Green, right? That was the common consensus. We only brought in 18 North Texas players, and then we go ahead and get like 27 P4 D1 dudes, and then we kind of filtered in with a lot of other transfers from multiple levels, and it was an absolute necessity, right? Everybody that watched Oklahoma State football the last 2 years knew that, unfortunately, 40% of that roster was just not up to par. It wasn't going to cut it. It wasn't going to get us over the top. Could we have taken a lot of those guys and been semi-successful this season? Probably. But if you're going to burn it down and rebuild it, do it from the foundation up, right? And that's what we did. You bring in not only Eric Morris, but he brings in basically his entire staff. He brings in his GM. He brings in his recruiting guys, and he has familiarity with his agents that he trusts. And that's the way he rebuilt this thing. And again, even if you're not an Oklahoma State fan, if you're looking at it from an outside perspective, this is the dude that found not only Drew Mestemaker, but he's the guy who went after and found Cam Ward. He's the guy who went after John Mateer, Baker Mayfield, worked with Patrick Mahomes. Eric Morris is that dude. So if he's doing the talent evaluation, I don't give 13 hoots what college you came from. The last few years, that's been a concern, right? We've done terrible in the portal. Let's be realistic. So for him to be such a talent evaluator, if he says this is the dude, bring it on. Well, it's on like Donkey Kong, man. I love it.
Well, and it's interesting because you guys had a lot more ground to make up, I think, than most Big 12 schools, obviously. But I also think you successfully did that. Or Houston came off a 10-win season, had a big senior class that kind of had to, fill in less gaps, but also had some very glaring gaps in a lot of ways. Both of us, I think, made a big signing early, and that was part of the deal here. Whether it's Mestemaker or Houston pulled in Makai Hughes, which is a running back that had 2,700 yards in the course of 2 seasons at Tulane before following his half-brother to Oregon. And for what it's worth, he realized the depth chart had a lot of running backs up there at Oregon and opted to redshirt. That's why his numbers are – I mean, they're only 4 games worth of them from his time at Oregon. Tulane guy, played for Houston's offensive coordinator Slade Nagel and Coach Willie Fritz at Tulane for one of those 2 seasons.
Yep.
And I think that this feels very, very harmonious. It feels good for Houston to be pulling this in after getting kind of Weigman last year as the quarterback spot. But as you've seen with Oklahoma State too, you pull in a couple of big fish, and suddenly the rest start to filter in. Offensive linemen like Drew Terrell or Shadre Hurst say, hey, I want to come play for that. I want to be a part of that offense or whatever. Who were the next couple of guys on Oklahoma State that you're like, okay, this is going to help? Because truthfully, they could probably help you turn the page more.
Well, I think offensively, we've already talked about the main guys that are going to be the focal points, but we all talk about offensive line. I think us, going out and getting some good. We get Louis Canepa back, who was one of the biggest transfer portal dudes from this previous season. He dealt with some injuries, right? So, it didn't work out. And then we go out and get 6'7" Ashton Aleppo out of Michigan State. I think he's going to be a massive addition. You got to go to the defensive side of the ball. We get Isaiah Chisum from UCLA. And he's been a massive addition. You go out and get Ethan Wislowski, who, according to PFF, is one of the top 3 best graded out linebackers from this previous season, who's an absolute animal. He slightly reminiscent of Malcolm Rodriguez for Oklahoma State country. Right? That's a good throwback name. And then on the offensive side of the ball, we had to be able to put up points. We couldn't stretch the field last year. That was the problem. Nobody respected the pass, so everybody boxed us in. We've been getting boxed in for the last 4 years, right? Since everybody figured out how to stop Ollie Gordon, nobody's playing cover 2, cover 3 cloud against us ever again until we are a threat deep on every single play. We go out and get Justin Bowick, a massive 6'4", 225-pound wide receiver out of Illinois, who was their red zone target this previous season. They dang sure did not want to lose him. And I think you get a Nye White from Penn State, defensive end. That's a big addition for the Cowboys. And then we go out and get a couple, big time Quentin Hammonds from North Texas dudes, who was their leading guy this previous season when it comes to the safety position. We get LaDainian Fields back for the cornerback position, but we were also able to kind of, rebuild in every aspect. So I'm excited, man. I do think that we nailed this thing.
I feel really good about Houston's class too, and I guess that's why I feel this is a commonality between because like they pulled in like the Patrick Overmeyer, the guy that's only played tight end for a couple years. He was at UTSA. They pulled him in. He'd been a high school quarterback, so he at a couple years in the position now. He's 6'5", 220, and he's kind of gotten used to playing a new spot. They pull in guys like Demarion Thomas, who is an Oklahoma State. I don't mean to put salt in a wound necessarily, but a big body out of a Power 4 school who had a lot more, frankly, snaps under his belt from his time at Vanderbilt. So I'll think of him more as a Commodore. I don't mean too much there. But you also, I think you pull guys and maybe less experienced in Jaden Yates, the linebacker Houston pulled in from Ole Miss, who had I think gotten some run when one guy was hurt but wasn't a full-time guy at Ole Miss.
Gotcha.
And he's looking to get more snaps in Houston just because of the depth of the position, whatever. Versus a deep playoff run team like Ole Miss was.
Hey, we got a linebacker from Ole Miss named Trip White that probably went through the exact same thing. So I get it. I feel you.
So I think the next question is really more a bigger transfer, and this may be more of a preference thing.
Okay.
Do you tend to think more highly of the commits, like, not to mention the 18 North Texas guys, they followed their coach, obviously, but like a Western Kentucky kid who is like moving up a division and is like, hey, he didn't get recruited at high school for this, that, and the other, but like, hey, he's moving up in the world for the good reason. Or a guy like you mentioned that we both have a linebacker from Mississippi that like just needs somewhere to play. Like they got in a packed room and they just need some snaps. I don't know which way I lean on it, but you follow recruiting really closely. Do you have preference one way or the other for the Cowboys?
Well, I look at it a couple different ways. Like one of them being, I kind of appreciate it. It was a little bit of a concern under Mike Gundy's staff, right? Let's be real. The talent evaluation in the portal was not that great. So it was a little bit of concern, but a lot of times whenever you get those guys from those smaller places that have earned statistically their right to be at the P4 level, if you get the right guys that buy in the right way, those dudes will play a little bit harder than everybody else. And you got to admit that stuff matters because they're still fighting. They're still clawing. They still have stuff to prove. They're still trying to get NIL. And so as a lineman, right, if you love the quarterback behind you, you're going to block a little bit longer. If you're trying to make a roster spot or be a starter or get more NIL, you're going to pursue as a defensive tackle 55 yards down the field as opposed to what we haven't been doing the last couple seasons. So I look at it that way. If you get the right guys that buy in the right way, then yeah. And it's secondarily, Parker, I'm glad you're letting me toot a horn here. As I just mentioned, I think that Eric Morris and Raj Murdy have proven that they are right now already one of the best talent evaluation combos in all of college football. It's just going to be whether they visibly prove it at the Big 12 level. I think they're going to. And again, if you've got the guy that found the quarterbacks that nobody else wanted, but the only people that really wanted Cam Ward were the triple option teams because that's what he ran. But Eric Morris did other things like 7-on-7 to find out that, yeah, this dude can throw. He just happens to be in an offense that doesn't. The same thing with John Mateer. He recruited him the heaviest. He was the first person to go to Mike Leach and say, hey, we got this kid that I just coached down at Lubbock. His name's Baker Mayfield. They're not going to give him a scholarship. We have to give him a scholarship. Mike Leach, for whatever reason, didn't listen. But that's my point. He has been a talent evaluation guy that has an eye that other people just don't. Drew Mestemaker didn't start a game in high school, homie. Not one. And you've got Jeff Christensen, who's a legend in the game, saying he could be the next Tom Brady. And Eric Morris was the only guy to go find that.
Well, and I want to ask you in a second because I got an answer for mine, but like a name that non-Cowboy fans need to know from the transport class because I like these younger guys, these guys moving up in the world too. And I've got one on the tip of my tongue for Houston. I'll say in a second. But first, today's show is brought to you by our buddies over at FanDuel because it is March. We're talking football. It's spring ball time, but March means college basketball is nonstop. Big games, tight spreads, momentum swings every single night. Early tip-offs like Houston, Oklahoma State on Saturday morning in the central time zone, that is, and late tip-offs as well on the West Coast or wherever BYU After Dark is happening. Now FanDuel is giving you a way to turn that energy into even bigger potential wins. The college basketball parlay profit boost. Build any parlay you want, rivalry games, ranked matchups, etc. Look ahead to the future. It's going into March Madness. If you got a team you like the Cougs, get in on the action early. FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com. Play your game. Cody, we're also talking about tax season today.
Yeah, TurboTax is exactly what you need to relieve all of the stress that we understand is going to come down the pipeline, right? Whenever you, I don't know, have a lot of this difficulty, you just need to get with the expert. And TurboTax is that expert. It is that time. Trying to book an appointment, it's not the most convenient thing. Sitting in a waiting room, letting papers stack up, emailing back and forth, even and wondering if you're going to get to the right situation. But this is the year you're getting a major upgrade. Intuit TurboTax now has in-person locations nationwide. You can meet face-to-face with a real tax expert, and your documents get uploaded straight to your TurboTax app on the spot. Just like that, you're done. Your TurboTax expert works to get every dollar that you deserve while you get real-time notifications as you go on about your day. It's the relief of walking in, meeting a real person, and walking out knowing your taxes are done the right way. Head on over to turbotax.com/local to find a store near you where you can book your appointment by going to turbotax.com.
Park Rangers, Cody Stovall, Locked on Cougs, Locked on Oklahoma State, both killed it in the transfer portal. And a name I've been kind of telling people I'm really excited about for Houston that only Houston people tend to know about, but with Oklahoma State fans, and Gary for this too, is a big corner, 6'2", 190-pound Jalen Mayo from Stephen F. Austin. Houston pulled in the DB's coach from Stephen F. Austin to come to Houston as an assistant coach. And that guy was like, we need to go get this kid to come with me. And Mayo had crazy high PFF scores, but like all the blue dots. If you're a PFF person, all the blue dots means good games. Right. The big deal is that it's going to be obviously a very big step up in competition, going from Stephen F. Austin's schedule to a Big 12 schedule. But he's got the frame, weirdly, at 6'2", 190 pounds. And so I think he'll be okay there. Now, he had all the accolades you could get as a DB at the Stephen F. Austin, FCS kind of ranking and Southland Conference first team and all that kind of stuff. But because he's a Stephen F. Austin guy, he didn't have the high transfer portal accolades or the all the stars you get on 3 and those kind of things coming in. I really think between playing for a coach he knows, a big, strong, long kind of corner, I think he's going to have a pretty solid year at Houston and could even be the kind of guy that we're talking about. Like, is he a draft pick after, kind of a all rise career at Houston a year from now? Because he's such a big corner. But Cody, North Texas aside, a lot of guys transferred their way into Oklahoma State with the changing of coaches there. who's someone that maybe isn't getting the run? I'd assume not a North Texas guy, but maybe is a North Texas guy, just not named Mestemaker, that people need to know about.
I'm going to go with 5'7", 185-pound Wake Forest transfer wide receiver Chris Barnes. You already know that a wide receiver and running back at Oklahoma State are renowned. Even when we're terrible, those are two positions we're expected to be good. We just had Brendan Presley go to the NFL. He's doing his thing with the LA Rams right now. I think Chris Barnes is that next guy, right? He had like 547 yards receiving last year for Wake Forest, 263 return yards, almost 1,000 yards, obviously collectively. He is going to be that gadget guy, the guy that Brendan Presley was at, for at Oklahoma State. He's going to be that dude instantaneously, not only, help stretch the field, but he's going to be that return dude. And we haven't had a big time return guy since Brendan Presley. And even Brendan Presley, being a big time return guy, I think he only had like 3 returns for a touchdown, which is impressive. But Chris Barnes, I think, couldn't be more elusive, and he could be more of a gadget guy. And it allows Eric Morris to get more creative offensively. So I think people need to pay attention to slot receiver, 5'7", Chris Barnes.
You have no way of knowing this. This is a way to prove that we're not a scripted show, folks. I had on really good authority that Chris Barnes was really looking at Houston. He's a North Shore kid from the greater Houston area. I talked about him a lot in the where is he going to go stage of the transfer portal.
All right.
And I think he's really good. I think you're spot on with the analysis of what he can do. You said that name, and I was like, God, oh, man. You have no way of knowing that, but that was really, really good. Kid's really good. Kid's really good. And for Houston fans, Locked on Cougs, Houston, he is a North Shore kid. And, when he's not playing against Houston, he's worth rooting for. Y'all get Tech near the end of the season. Houston gets Tech third game of the season. I don't mean to make them the end all be all. They did just win the conference. And I think that's an interesting measuring stick. I like that Houston gets them early, early in the Brendan Sorsby era, early in
I agree.
figuring out what you got and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel going into that as, playing the reigning champs late in the season? I think it's mid-November if I got it.
Yeah, it's like our second or third last game of the season in Boone Pickens Stadium, baby. I'll tell you why I like it, okay? Offensively, I think we're going to be able to put up points on almost literally anybody and everybody in the league. Now, defensively, that's going to be the question. I don't know what we're going to look like. Skylar Cassidy at North Texas didn't have great stats team-wise defensively, but they were opportunistic. They were bend but don't break. They were like, top 15 in the country in creating turnover ratio situations that were beneficial. I think the idea is, well, at North Texas, he couldn't get the N.I. Whites from Penn State. He couldn't get the Isaiah Chisums from UCLA. So I think now he has more tools in his tool bag. We're going to see a different version of Cowboy football. Texas Tech is supposed to be our rival, right? They do the guns up, as you conflated last episode. We do pistols firing. They have some goofy looking Yosemite Sam dude standing on the sidelines pretending to have guns. We got a real dude that's a real guy, that's a real cowboy that shoots real guns. We're better than Xerox U, and it's finally time that we remind everybody in the country of that. I think firmly Drew Mestemaker is significantly better than Brendan Sorsby. It is offensive when you've got people trying to even put into a comparison a guy that threw for 2,800 yards that is a little bit bigger, a little bit faster than Baron Morton. But to compare that to a guy like Drew Mestemaker, if you want to say that 4,700 yards in the AAC is not equivalent in the Big 12, but what's it equivalent to? Whatever number you throw out there, Drew Mestemaker's thrown more than 2,800 flipping yards in the conference.
Well,
it's insanity, bro.
And Cincinnati has looked like an AAC team at various points too. Totally. Well, yeah. I will say I like that Houston gets them early because they're going to be still figuring a lot of things as far as who's on the roster. Now, as they found out last year, that also meant that they were completely healthy, right? Like Houston played them early last year too, and there was no chance for like a sore this or bothered that or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think Houston's got a much better matchup. Houston does have to go to Lubbock this year, which is a little bit challenging. It's a tough place to play, right? It just is. But we also see you guys in mid-October, and so we'll be obviously back on this before that,
which is also a home game.
Yeah, it is. It is. So I think that I think Houston's coming off a 10-win season, obviously looking to improve on a lot of things. Weirdly, that stretch they go to Kansas State, we host Oklahoma State, and then go to Utah. That could be a really pivotal stretch or a turning point for the season, actually. And so we'll see how that plays out for the Cougs, see how that plays out for the Pokes. I'm going to try
Parker,
not
you did just hear me, right? When I said that it's a home game for us in Houston.
Everyone says that. Everyone's
Parker,
Yeah.
you got to admit, right? The handful of times we've played you, it's been a lot of orange. It's been more orange than the red, but I don't expect that to be anywhere like that this upcoming season.
I think we're different because Houston's been better as of late. Now, if Houston loses 2 or 3 games before that,
I think you guys you should be offended that we can put, that thousands and thousands of people into your stadium. You should, that should bother you.
Well, and I don't mean to go on the same tangent I've been on before, but I think I said on the squad show that one unique thing working against Houston that doesn't work against West Virginia is all of these schools have large alumni bases in Houston because it's a big city, and that's just
Parker,
different. But
it's our only way to poke fun at you right now. You let me have my only poke that I have. All right.
Yeah, the pokes get to poke. Anyway, that's the way that goes.
That's it.
We'll keep poking fun each other in the offseason as we head towards. But big basketball game Saturday between these two schools as well. We'll be breaking things down each of our respective channels after that. And heading to the Big 12 tournament, we may see each other again. Who knows? Cody, it's a pleasure as always. Locked on Cougs, locked on Oklahoma State. I'm not going to put my finger guns the wrong way and get it confused this time. How could I ever get those two mascots confused?
You'd just be like, what did you say? You were like, is that guns firing? I was like, what? Parker, how could you?
There you go. Go Cougs. Yeah. There's multiple Cougars too, for what it's worth, but that's